Our time starts right now. This is Carolina Corral in the studio. I welcome the viewers of Freedom. And now let's get straight to the important news. 4 people were killed by a Russian drone strike in the Donetsk region, and 5 more were injured, including 3 children. This was reported by the regional prosecutor's office. In the Kramatorsk district, Garin 2 drones attacked a residential area. 3 people were killed there, including a father and his 5-year-old son. The child's mother, 3 girls, and their neighbor were injured. They suffered blast injuries and burns. 2 residential houses were destroyed. Law enforcement has launched an investigation into a war crime. As a result of the Russian attack on the Dnipropetrovsk region, 2 people were injured, a woman and an 18-year-old young man. This was reported by the head of the Regional Military Administration, Alexander Hanja. According to him, a private house and a car were destroyed. Another house was damaged, and farm buildings and a farm were also destroyed. In addition, during the night, the Russian army attacked Kryvyi Rih and the surrounding area with drones. Fires broke out, and civilian infrastructure was damaged. Also, after the Russian strikes, 2 mines in Kryvyi Rih lost power. Nearly 100 miners were trapped underground at a depth of more than a kilometer. This was reported by the State Emergency Service of Ukraine. The rescue operation lasted 6 hours. All the miners were brought to the surface, alive and well. This is far from the first time that, because of Russian army strikes, Ukrainian mine workers have been trapped deep underground. More than 100 attack drones were launched by Russian forces at Ukrainian territory last night. According to the Air Force Command of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, air defenders managed to neutralize 76 drones of the Shahed and Gerbera types. The aerial attack was repelled by aviation, anti-aircraft missile troops, electronic warfare, and drone units, as well as mobile fire groups of Ukraine's defense forces. Emergency power outages continue in several regions of Ukraine, as reported by Ukrenergo. After massive Russian shelling, energy workers are working to stabilize the power supply. Meanwhile, nearly 2,000 apartment buildings in Kyiv remain without heat. Most of the outages are on the left bank of the capital. Overnight, heat was restored to more than 650 buildings. Restoration work is ongoing.
During the day, 165 crews work to restore heat to homes in Kyiv, and 83 are taking over for the night shift. Safety conditions are making the work significantly more difficult. In the evening, Kyiv experienced its 2,000th air raid alert since the start of martial law. I want to remind everyone, the enemy is not only shelling our infrastructure, but also trying to destabilize our society. We are seeing a lot of fake news and manipulation in the information space. I urge you to trust only official information. Denis Shmihal, Minister of Energy of Ukraine, on Telegram.
The European Union is sending about 500,000 emergency generators to Ukraine from its strategic reserves. This was reported by the European Commission. The equipment, worth more than 4 million euros in total, will supply power to hospitals, points of invincibility, and critical infrastructure.
Russian strikes have left more than 1 million Ukrainians without electricity and water. People are freezing in temperatures as low as minus 20 degrees. Because of this, we have mobilized our reserves to the fullest extent possible. 450 generators are now being sent to Ukraine. They will provide electricity to hospitals and points of invincibility, where residents come for warmth and support. Since the start of Russian aggression, we have delivered almost 10,000 generators, and more than just that. As part of the largest and most complex operation of the European Civil Protection Mechanism, we dismantled a power plant in Vilnius and transferred it to Ukraine. All of this has helped keep people warm and improve living conditions for at least 9 million Ukrainians. We will not allow Russia to freeze Ukraine. We bring light and warmth where Russia sows darkness. We firmly stand with Ukraine.
The General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine recorded 222 combat clashes on the front line over the past day. The most difficult situation remains in the Pokrovsk direction. There were 92 assaults by Russian troops there. Near Huliaipol, Ukrainian defenders repelled 37 enemy attacks. In the Kostiantynivka sector, the Russian army carried out 20 attacks, while in the Oleksandrivka and southern Slobozhansky directions, 12 assaults by the aggressor's troops were recorded in each. Russia is optimizing its forces for positional warfare against Ukraine by increasing the supply of light motorized equipment to its troops. This was reported by the Institute for the Study of War. This year, the Russian command plans to provide assault units with more than 2,500 buggies, motorcycles, and ATVs from the General Staff's reserves, while the Defense Industrial Base will add another 4,000 units in the first quarter. This type of equipment is mainly used to transport infantry to the front line. Analysts note that this focus confirms the preparation of Russian troops for positional warfare, while advances on the front are likely to remain limited. Meanwhile, the total combat losses of the Russian army in Ukraine have already exceeded 1,232,000 personnel. Another 1,280 Russian occupiers were eliminated over the past day. This was reported by the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Also, over the past day, 3 tanks, the same number of armored vehicles, 33 artillery pieces, and 141 units of Russian automotive and special equipment were destroyed. The administration of U.S. President Donald Trump has proposed a new plan to Denmark to protect Greenland from the influence of Russia and China. According to the New York Times, the U.S. is seeking to officially prohibit these countries from extracting rare minerals beneath the island's glaciers in order to ensure the security of Western interests. Instead of directly purchasing the territory, Washington is proposing to create a new NATO Arctic mission called Arctic Sentinel. There are also plans to update the military agreement, which would allow the U.S. to establish permanent American enclaves in Greenland. Although Denmark is categorically opposed to selling the land, the proposed compromise could diffuse the emerging diplomatic crisis. The final details of the document are still being discussed. Berlin is expelling a Russian diplomat for espionage. According to the German Foreign Ministry, the person in question is the deputy military attaché who worked at the Russian embassy in Berlin. And according to the German Federal Prosecutor's Office, his agent spent 3 years gathering information about German defense industry facilities, drone tests, and planned drone deliveries to Ukraine. This information was passed on to the diplomat, who, as the investigation established, works for one of the Russian intelligence services. He was ordered to leave Germany within 72 hours. Let's discuss the next topic in more detail. So, the first trilateral talks between Ukraine, the US, and Russia have begun in the United Arab Emirates. As President Volodymyr Zelensky announced the day before, the Ukrainian delegation will be represented in particular by the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council, Rustem Umerov, the head of the President's office, Kirilo Budanov, and his deputy, Sergei Kislitsa. In recent weeks, they have been in constant contact with their American partners. I'll also add that the U.S. President's Special Representative, Steve Witkoff, has arrived in Abu Dhabi. The key issue that the delegations will discuss is the question of territory, primarily concerning Donbass. The parties will discuss its modalities and present their positions.
We really had a positive meeting with President Trump and his team. First of all, I raised the issue of air defense, and I believe the U.S. will come back with a positive result. When the result is in Ukraine, I will definitely announce it. Second, the security guarantees. They are indeed ready, and the agreement is ready to be signed. Of course, there will still be many different technical details. Based on this document, there will be additional documents, but the main agreement on security guarantees is in place. Now I'm waiting for President Trump to set the date in place. Volodymyr Zelensky, President of Ukraine, in a comment to journalists.
The Russian delegation in the UAE is headed by the chief of the main directorate of the General Staff of the Russian Armed Forces, Kostukov. This was reported by Putin's aide, Ushakov. He clarified that the delegation received specific instructions from Putin and emphasized that Russia intends to continue the war against Ukraine until, and I quote, a political diplomatic settlement is achieved. At the same time, the press secretary of the Russian dictator, Peskov, stated that the Kremlin's position on Donbass has not changed. He said that the Ukrainian armed forces must be withdrawn from this territory. Let me also remind you that the day before, negotiations between U.S. representatives and Putin took place in Moscow, and according to Ushakov, they were supposedly constructive and extremely frank. The agreement on Ukraine's post-war prosperity is almost ready. Along with the Americans and Ukrainians, the European Union is also participating in its development. In Brussels, they see Ukraine's future as a modern, sovereign, and free country. Now the ball is in Russia's court. This was stated by European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen after an informal meeting of the European Council.
Work on packages of measures to ensure security and prosperity, as well as on specific aspects of peace negotiations, is also progressing successfully. As you know, the security guarantees we discussed, particularly at the Paris meeting on January 6th, have brought good progress, and now we are waiting for a response from Russia. As for the prosperity package, the second major package, we are close to reaching an agreement with the United States and Ukraine on a unified framework program on this issue. It is aimed at how we can guarantee Ukraine's prosperity at the moment a ceasefire or peace is achieved.
Volodymyr Zelensky stated that Donald Trump supports the idea of a free trade zone for Ukraine. President Zelensky said this while speaking with journalists in Davos. He also stated that the American leader could end Russia's war against Ukraine, since he speaks to the Russian dictator Putin as an equal, and the U.S. is much stronger than Russia. In turn, Donald Trump, aboard his plane, said that the president of Ukraine would like to reach an agreement. At the same time, the head of the White House did not disclose specific details of the potential agreements. Steve Witkoff, the special representative of U.S. President Donald Trump, announced that he would soon visit Kyiv. He did not specify the exact dates of the visit. He made the statement in Davos while answering questions from journalists, and also spoke about progress in negotiations to end Russia's war against Ukraine. Steve Witkoff noted that the process is in its final stage.
We talked about the positive dynamics in the development of Ukraine's economy and financial system, the capital market, and jobs. The president mentioned a duty-free zone for Ukraine, which, in my opinion, will be a turning point. You will see how industry will begin to move en masse to this region. Imagine being able to compete without paying duties when exporting goods to the United States.